Hello and welcome to the September 17th edition of the Gold Goats and Guns Short News. My name is Tom Luongo, and we have a lot to talk about. Today, I want to talk about Bill Browder and the EU. So it seems that the EU's been in business now more than 20 years, and it's never invoked Article 7 against one of its member countries until this week, when we have one vote in favor of moving an Article 7 complaint against Hungary another step forward, which most likely won't come to pass because Poland has threatened to veto this. But then we have another Article 7 threat, which was not widely reported in the news, surrounding Cyprus and Bill Browder. Now, Browder's the former CEO of Hermitage Capital and a man who made billions of dollars in the looting of Russia in the 1990s. He's also the architect of the Magnitsky Act, which is the basis for all of the sanctions craze that's come out of the United States in the past year or so. It's the act under which Russia was originally sanctioned in 2014 by not only the United States, but the EU and others. Okay. And the Magnitsky Act was due to expire last year, and its new version, its progenitor, its daughter, Katsa, was pushed through Congress and pushed through the Senate with a 98-2 vote in favor of, championed in one of the last acts of John McCain in the Senate before he was put out to pasture to battle with a heroic brain tumor that eventually, thankfully, throttled his brain and killed him. So here we are this summer. Trump, against everybody in Washington's wishes, goes and meets Putin in Helsinki for a summit. They have a nearly 2-hour closed-door meeting, which everybody in Washington wants to know what they talked about. Now, I'll tell you what they talked about. They talked about Bill Browder. They talked about the looting of Russia. They talked about the insane levels to which these people have gone to try and, one, frame Trump for colluding with Russia, and two, try to destroy Russia through endless sanctions and endless cutting off the country from international capital. Now, earlier this year, our Treasury Department went after Russia by demanding U.S. investors divest themselves of all Russian sovereign debt and corporate debt within 30 days back in May, caused a huge uproar in the markets, caused Russian corporate bonds to drop by 80 cents on the dollar. It caused the ruble to start falling. It caused the Russian yield curve to blow out. It finally caused the Bank of Russia to raise interest rates on Friday by a quarter point just to try and stop the madness, even though Russia's fundamentals are outstanding and the ruble should not be falling under its current conditions. It should be strengthening. But we can't have that. We need to continue to push and put more pressure on Russia. And what we're doing now, and everything that's happening right now, is designed to cut off Russia from the European banking system. Earlier this year, Latvian bank ABLV was accused of money laundering and then taken over by the European Central Bank very, very quickly. Now, the Baltic banks were all one of the major conduits for Russian companies to gain access and keep access to the European banking system without having to update themselves for current sanctions policy and whatnot. ABLV was one of those banks. In the Estonian branch of Denmark's Danske Bank is also one of those banks. And that bank, a week after Helsinki, Browder files a complaint for a money laundering complaint to the tune of $8 billion that he alleges were laundered through the Estonian branch of Danske Bank from Russia, Moldova, and Azerbaijan, all in service of, supposedly, or at least as far as Browder is concerned, evil Russians. Now, with the Magnitsky Act,
anybody named in either CATSA or the Magnitsky Act who's involved in any of these transactions. And to be honest with you, the list of people is basically everybody in Russia who makes $1. They pretty much went through the Russian phone book, the Moscow phone book, and just put everybody on the list. Because once under those pieces of legislation, a person can be sanctioned for, quote, human rights violations. Treasury Department can then look at a complaint about money laundering, tie it to that, and tie it to the Magnitsky Act, and you can sanction individuals, and you can go after banks. So here's the situation. Since the complaint by Browder, Danske has lost nearly 30% of its stock value. Stock price has dropped by nearly 30%. The Treasury Department on Friday issued a statement saying that they're investigating this independently, and they can issue their own findings, and whatever findings they come up with, they can use to starve Danske of dollars. They openly threatened this. And it was in the Wall Street Journal. And interestingly, when you go to the Wall Street Journal, on most articles, they're all new articles are behind the paywall. Not this one. This one is out there for everybody to read, whether you're a subscriber to the Wall Street Journal or not. Or why that is. That's because they want everybody to read this. Okay. This is an attack on the European banking system. This is a fundamental threat to the EU, to the EU leadership, and everybody else that if you don't stay on the bandwagon, we will destroy your major banks. And Browder's at the epicenter of all of this. He's at the epicenter of everything anti-Russia. Moreover, Cyprus is in his crosshairs now because Russia is investigating him still. They tried him in absentia for tax evasion and other things, and they're continuing to investigate him. And they're getting the assistance of the Cyprus government to look into his offshore dealings, all of which go through Cyprus. And so after a Nicosia district court ruled in favor of effectively both Browder and Russia in a suit brought by Browder to end Russia's investigation in Cyprus, the Nicosia the Nicosia court said that Mr. Browder's right, that his human rights would be violated by this investigation, but that none of that damage is irreparable, and he can go and he can sue Russia in court later on, and he would be free to do so. But that there's no reason why the investigation can't continue. The court wanted to have its cake and eat it too, which is interesting. So in response to that, 4 members of the European Parliament issued a direct threat to the Cyprus government that if they did not stop assisting Russia in this investigation on human rights grounds, so now they invoke Article 7 on human rights grounds, human rights violations, that by investigating Mr. Browder's offshore finances, when Russia has a legitimate complaint from their perspective, and now the EU is threatening Cyprus with an Article 7 expulsion over the investigation, this makes no sense. If Mr. Browder is as pure as a driven snow as he purports to be, as he makes himself out to be, he should have nothing to hide. He should welcome Russia's investigation in order to clear his name. So what's he got to hide? Ultimately, what this is doing, and this is the really important point, this is the salient point, this is the takeaway. This is the part you won't hear anywhere else. The takeaway here is that the people who are dead set on not allowing Russia to escape control of the U.S. and European financial oligarchy. That's what this is about. The Russians are trying to extricate themselves from the dollar-based system. They're trying to extricate themselves from the ability of the United States and the European banking system to exert political pressure on Russia. Their drive to try and keep Russia in the fold and not allow Russia to escape, because if Russia escapes, then other countries can escape, will actually destroy the European banking system in the process. If Danske goes down over this, they're forced to pay a massive fine. We already have other instances where the EU has undermined the investability of their own banks. Okay, the ABLV seizure early in the year is one. The takeover and liquidation of Banco Popular in Spain last year, which saw depositors wiped out as everybody was bailed in. The bank was sold to Santander for $1. Okay, who in their right mind would invest in European banks if someone in Washington gets their nose in a snit and then trashes the bank? The ECB takes it over, farms it out to somebody else, and bails in all the depositors. Who in their right mind would invest in these banks? They're undermining the validity of these important institutions of Europe. Capital is going to flee Europe like it's got the plague, because it does. So if you want to know what this catalyst for a sovereign debt crisis looks like, your sign. Moreover, this is a direct threat, direct blackmail threat to the EU leadership to not get off the bandwagon, to not defy the U.S. over doing business with Iran, lifting sanctions against Russia, or anything else. You will do as we say, or we will destroy you. You destroy the EU, you're going to destroy the American banking system and the UK banking system as well, because it's all interconnected. And Mr. Browder is at the epicenter of it all. Because what this comes down to is that all of these people are guilty as sin of everything that they've been accused of by those of us at the fringes of this. And they all know it. In many ways, they don't care because they think they can get away with it. But the world's watching. The men in this world who direct the flow of capital understand what's happening. The Eurodollar markets are being drained, have been drained rapidly and continue to be drained. Offshore dollars are going to move to other places, and they're trying to move into other markets, and the United States is cutting off that flow. All that money is going to come to the United States and send the dollar through the roof, which is going to crash Europe. It's going to crash the bond markets. It's going to crash everything. This has been the Gold, Goats, and Guns short news for Monday, September 17th, 2018. If you like what you heard today, please give a like and subscribe down below. It'd be really great. There'll be links to all of the stuff in the description of the video. Please read all of them. You can follow the rest of my work over at goldgoatsandguns.com, and you can subscribe to my work over at Patreon to support what I do. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon, and keep your stick on the ice.